Hi, I'm James Shillinglaw, and I'm here with hopefully a familiar face for most of you. It's Jeff Miller, who is our travel law insider, and longtime travel law specialist. And Jeff writes a monthly column for us. And actually, I've been working with Jeff for, I don't want to say how long, probably more about 25 years, I think, at this point. And he has served as a travel law columnist for a number of publications that I have edited. Now, we thought that given this time, you usually see Jeff's column, but we thought we'd like to do some video sessions with him focusing on legal issues arising from the COVID-19 crisis. And indeed, if you've ever been to a travel agency conference, sometimes Jeff does these live talking about legal issues. But we're going to focus on some legal issues really related to COVID, and we're going to do one session today, and then we'll follow up with another session. So you'll hear from Jeff today on Insider Travel Reporting. First of all, Jeff, how are you and where are you?
I'm good. I'm in Maryland, doing well.
Yeah.
Taught a course all summer by WebEx, by Zoom.
Yeah, I know you because you also teach travel law at a university, and as well as act as a travel law advisor as well, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Now let's talk about, we're going to talk about these sort of key issue areas. And in fact, one of the initial reasons to do this was a lot of people were talking about travel waivers and how normally travel advisors will provide waivers, or ask their clients to sign waivers if there's maybe some medical condition or some other things, so they won't obviously get sued because they booked the travel. And some people are suggesting that there should be a COVID travel waiver if they get sick with COVID while traveling, so they can't sue their advisor. Now, is that something that's happening? Is it necessary? And would travel advisors actually be liable when booking travel if their clients somehow contract COVID-19?
I haven't done any for clients, and I've talked to other lawyers who do my kind of work, and they haven't done it for clients. And I don't really recommend it. I think it's basically would be a waste of legal fees to have somebody draft that. The key issue for a travel advisor is if you have errors and omissions insurance, will it cover you if you get sued on a COVID-19 matter? That's the key issue. The waiver would be meaningless because you could get sued even with the waiver, and if you don't have coverage for it, then the legal fees would be enormous to defend that kind of case. I don't see how a travel advisor, as an agent of a supplier, could actually ever be found liable on a COVID-19 situation. It's obviously possible that could happen, but I don't see the circumstances because as the agent of the hotel or the cruise line or the airline, I stand in their shoes. If they have liability, they're going to be responsible, not me. But having said that, many times travel advisors are named in lawsuits. And if you don't have errors and omissions insurance, you've got to defend yourself. As I'm sure most of your readers know, if you have travel insurance as a travel advisor, you have errors and omissions insurance, the insurance company has to defend you, and that's outside of the policy limits. In other words, it has nothing to do with how much they may have to pay. They have to provide the lawyers. And they use a staff. They have their own lawyers they use around the country. They're not employees, they're usually, but they have a group of lawyers that they use that specialize in this kind of work. And I think that's the key issue. To have a client sign a waiver, first of all, from a marketing standpoint, is not very useful because the client's going to start raising a lot of questions. Is it safe to go? Do you know if it's safe to go? And if I tell you, well, I know the hotel is 100% safe, which of course is impossible, then maybe you do have liability because you've led the person to believe that situation. The answer on a COVID question from a client, from a passenger is, I don't know. We assume they're following the CDC guidelines. You can check with the hotel. But I don't recommend using a waiver. I think it has no value. You'll just incur legal fees drafting one, and I don't think it's going to protect you from getting sued.
Right. Now, what everyone is putting in new health and safety guidelines for COVID. The hotels sort of let it off, and tour operators and a few cruise lines have started, and of course they're not operating right now, and there's supposed to be some massive industry-wide set of standards. Is a travel advisor responsible for communicating those standards to their client?
I don't think they are, and I recommend they don't. You would recommend, why don't you go to the CDC website, or like with a State Department issue of security or something like that, you refer them to the State Department website. Travel advisors are sales and marketing people. They're people to people, and they tend to sometimes say things they shouldn't say, which could be interpreted and put them in a liability situation. I don't think they should do that. I think if a client has a concern about the particular cruise line CDC standards, I think you should refer them to their website. If it's a hotel chain or a specific hotel or a specific car rental company, I think you refer them to those websites. But I can give you an example. I'm renting a van right now because our daughter and grandchildren and son-in-law are in from Seattle, so I needed a van for the week. And when we picked up the van from an unnamed company, obviously, they have a big tag on the window that says we completely clean this car pursuant to CDC guidelines. Well, in most Chrysler products, the Dodge we have, they have under floor compartments where you can store things, which is great. So I go to open that, and I've got McDonald's food, McDonald's bags, McDonald's trash. So they went to all this trouble to clean it, whoever cleaned it, and put the sign up that we followed CDC guidelines, but they didn't clean the whole car.
Well, they were just trying to give you some food on the way out. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, Jeff.
The only question is whether I'm going to pay for it or not when I turn it in.
There you go. But you would say, in addition to referring them to the CDC guidelines, that if you might refer them to the point on the website of the supplier, which might have those health and safety standards without saying anything about them.
Absolutely. And today they definitely, every major supplier, particularly the cruise lines when they're totally back up and running, will clearly have those guidelines of what they've done on their website, because that's now a very important promotional pitch to get a passenger into their facility or their ship.
Yeah, and that's the same with resorts and hotels. Every major chain has come out with their hotel chain, all-inclusive chain, has come out their new set of cleanliness standards, usually backed up by some medical authority of some kind, I think.
Yes, and it depends on the individual property also as to what kind of emphasis they put into it, their resources, things of that nature.
Yeah,
very important.
Let's move to a different issue involving COVID, and it's one that sort of began the whole thing, cancellations. And this is both cancellations from the customer side for those concerned about COVID-19, and then cancellations obviously from the supplier side, whether it's an airline, hotel, tour operator, because they simply weren't operating the flight, the cruise, or they had closed the hotel. What are the legal implications for travel advisors, all these different forms of cancellation?
Okay, well, this one I'm going to, based on personal experience. I'm a lawyer, but as a non-lawyer, I probably helped 35 to 40 people of friends of relatives, friends of friends, ex-students, current students, resolving travel-related issues on a no-fee basis where I gave them advice, but I wasn't involved with dealing with the supplier. And it really depended who the supplier was and what industry. Uniformly, the airlines, if you dealt directly with an airline and the flight was canceled, DOT regulations require that the money be totally refunded, including any fees you paid for baggage, seat assignment, or any of the other relevant fees that are around. So my experience, you may have waited a couple months to get the money back from the airline. And about half the cases I worked on, and again, these were pro bono, just helping out friends, about half of my work on it took 2 to 3 months to get the money back in their credit card. With one major carrier, it actually came back in about 2 weeks. So I was kind of surprised by that. Dealing with airline tickets that were sold not directly through the airline, and particularly through some of what I call the fly-by-night, with no names mentioned, of course, fly-by-night online travel agencies or travel advisors that are basically consolidators or selling as sub-agents through consolidators. They had no interest in giving back the money. And in fact, the ones that I dealt with, when I read the thing, they were going to charge you a fee to rebook, which is obviously incredible. And the way I advised the folks, there was about 5 or 6 different ones, and one's still going on, that you go, it's an airline ticket. It's sold by an airline. The consolidator who sold the ticket is an authorized agent of that airline. So you go after the airline to refund it. And like in Maryland, you pay your $20 in small claims court, and as soon as you file suit, the airline's going to pay you because they have no defense. They'll get the money back from the consolidator. But I had 5 or 6 of these where the consolidators just had no interest whatsoever. And they said, well, we'll refer you to our terms and conditions. You read the terms and conditions, it's if you cancel, not if the airline cancels.
Okay, got it.
So DOT is very clear, very, very clear. And if it's an airline ticket, it had to be issued by an agent or a sub-agent of an airline, or you can't issue the ticket. But that was the most difficult ones. And some of the people were pretty nasty. And the difficulty is, even if you accepted the credit from them and paid their reissue fee, they may not be around. So then you've got to go. I mean, a lot of these people are going to disappear. The cruise lines is kind of interesting because the cruise lines really didn't want to give back the money, and I don't blame them. So they were offering 125%, generally 125%, a 25% bonus, 125% of what you paid for a future cruise. I advised everybody that I dealt with, take the money and run for several reasons. First of all, if you have, most of them said if you book by the end of 2021, and there were various, depending on the cruise line, different requirements. But did you have to book by 2021 or did you have to use it by 2021? If you had to use it by 2021, do you want to go on a cruise by 2021?
Right.
If not, you've got a credit with a cruise line you're never going to use. If you could book by 2021 and sail by the end of 2022, maybe your circumstances change. Maybe you have health issues, family issues. Maybe you met somebody that doesn't want to cruise. There's all kinds of issues. Cash is cash and credit is credit.
Right.
And the way I've always operated with clients and personally is, I'll take the cash, you can take the credit.
Yeah.
And furthermore, the 25%, by the time you take your 100% cash, you may get a better deal than 125% credit. And the cruise lines have to be offering all kinds of discounts into the future. And of the people that I dealt with, I know 2 people definitely took the credit. And they were able to actually, by negotiating with the cruise line, get 150% credit.
Wow.
Which I thought was kind of interesting. Again, I'm giving these people advice of what to do, but I'm not contacting the supplier directly. And they said, well, we talked to somebody. And I said, did you get it in writing? And they said, yes, we got it in writing. And they have to book by the end of 2021. And they have to sail by the end of 2022. Okay. And they said, well, we like to sail. We always sail with this particular cruise line. And that's fine. And it's a couple that's been married a long time. They know they're going to be together. They know they're going to go. And that's great. Personally, I wouldn't have done that even at the 150%, but everybody's different. But that worked out well.
Yeah, I know that I think the figure is something like 50-50 in terms of those that have accepted those future cruise credits, as they call, with the 125%, and then some who've asked for refunds. And I do believe most cruise lines have been amenable to either way, although obviously it's taken a lot longer for refunds to be processed. And that there is, I do know of one major line that still has some issues from the advisors I've spoken with, because they have been slow to pay, but at least from what I hear. Well,
and you also have, if it's on a credit card and the cruise line has canceled the cruise, you're entitled to a refund on your credit card under federal law.
Right.
So there's no issue about that. You could file a complaint with your credit card. If you look at the back of your statement, it has the requirements, and they'll just reverse it. So you won't get a credit back from the cruise line. The charge just comes off your credit card, and if you've already paid it, it comes back as a credit. So that's very easy to do.
Yeah, no, I know. In fact, of course, I had the other experience when all this started, and I was actually down in Mexico when things went crazy in New York, and was trying to cancel and rebook flights. And the first thing they would say is, well, we can put this, the flight you want to cancel, instead of giving you a refund, we'll give you a credit, for a future flight. And it seemed at the time they presented it as being a lot easier than trying to get the refund. So I figured, this is all be over in a few months and I'll be back and need to be flying. So I'll take the credit. And of course, I really haven't yet, and I'm not sure when I will. So I guess I made the mistake instead of trying to get the refund.
Well, I actually had a different circumstance. I'll use the carrier's name because they did a great job. Southwest, who I actually fly all the time. It just works in where I'm traveling. In Southwest, I had booked a lot of flights because I book out into this. I commute to Florida, so I had flights booked 4 and 5 to 6 months into the future. And so technically the flights are still in the books, but I know I wasn't going to use them. So I went in and canceled a lot of those flights, and they have a credit where you have to use. Now they actually show it to you on your account. But I had a couple of flights with Southwest where we were going out west actually for my grandson's graduation, which didn't take place. And so Southwest had changed the flight from a nonstop from Oakland to Baltimore to 2 stops and 2 connections, particularly in April. And that one I got a refund. I said, I don't want a credit. You changed it. Clearly, it's not what I booked for. And they easily gave me a credit. Now, if you book on most airlines, and DOT has the same requirements, if you go from a nonstop to a connection, you're entitled to your money back, not a credit, because it's a different change in what's taking place. Or if it's a 4-hour layover instead of a nonstop flight, you don't need a credit. You're entitled to your money back. In my experience dealing with Southwest, and I had some friends who dealt with Delta and had no trouble, they didn't have any issues. Some of the other airlines who will remain unnamed, there clearly are ongoing issues with regard to the agent you deal with. They don't want to give you your money back. They say, well, what's the difference if it's a 4-hour connection?
Yeah,
so,
no, it's there seem to have been a lot of different policies. So I'm encouraged that at least there are a number of airlines are doing the right thing so far, although we are hearing of some international carriers and others that are still giving passengers some issues. And I know my good friend and former colleague, Bill McGee, who's a consumer advocate for airlines, for airline passengers, I should say, still has that issue on the table with the refund issue, as well as some other issues with, health and safety requirements on airlines, which are not uniform because the DOT really hasn't done a uniform health and safety standard.
I think it's clear with some foreign airlines who shall remain nameless that they have no intentions of giving the passenger back the money.
Wow. Now, have you heard anything in terms of tour operators, how they're handling?
Yeah, not good. Tour operators, I put in the class of consolidators. They are adamant not to give the money back.
I mean, some of the bigger ones I would think would do something, The bigger
ones, but there's a lot of ones around who aren't what we consider the bigger ones.
Right. No, there are definitely some small tour operators, right?
And they need that money.
Yeah.
And they have no intention of giving it back, particularly if they've already paid their suppliers in some foreign country or foreign countries. They really have no intention of giving it back. And I actually have 3 of the folks I was dealing with have filed claims in small claims court against these people. Even though they got to be where you can get them, but they happen to be located in states where they live or are very close by. And as soon as you sue them, you're going to get paid because they have insurance. No insurance company is going to pay a lawyer to come into court and defend a case that you can't win and then run up a bill of $3,000, $4,000, $5,000. It's an economic
absolutely.
issue.
Yeah. Now, what about
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
What about hotels?
I haven't seen any issues with hotels. A lot of times you just get the deposit back, or if it's a non-refundable, even non-refundable, they're obviously giving it back to you if there was some kind of restrictions you couldn't be there. I am aware of actually my grandniece and 3 of her college roommates rented a house through one of the large online travel agencies, and there were restrictions put in at Fort Lauderdale where they couldn't use it. And the company was adamant that they're not giving them back their money. And as of a week ago, since March, they haven't given it back to them, and they just filed suit in Florida against them.
Wow.
Small claims court. They were adamant. That's your tough luck. I think because it's 4 college students, they figure, we'll just abuse you. They didn't know that they knew a travel lawyer who could fill out the papers for them and have them sign it and file suit. Because once you file suit, no lawyer is going to defend that case for them. And this is a major online travel agency. And I think you're just dealing with renegades. I mean, I don't think that's corporate policy, but as it filters down, things happen.
Yeah. Now, I'm going to go back to the thing of where let's say the product, whether it's no cruises are operating, but let's say you as a client just don't want to go because you're afraid of COVID-19 and you don't want to be traveling at this time. Is this a more difficult situation in terms of getting refunds or getting future credits, or are the suppliers more understanding, or what's happening in that sense?
I think it's case by case, but generally if it hasn't been canceled, but you don't want to go for obvious reasons, you're maybe out of luck because you don't have a lot of rights.
Yeah. So there's not really a recourse there.
It's a case by case basis. I'm aware of a couple of situations where a cruise line said, this was going into next year already. Right. We'll give you a credit. We'll just take it off the books. I know one airline who agreed to do that, but generally you're stuck.
Yeah. Now, just grading A, B, C, D. in terms of the segments, who has been handling this the best? I guess first, what would be the grade for airlines?
I think the U.S. domestic airlines,
Yeah.
probably close to an A, a B plus.
Okay.
Foreign airlines, a
yep,
C.
A C. Okay. What about cruise lines? You're a professor in college. You know how to grade.
I give them a C plus because I mean obviously they've gotten clobbered financially. They're not getting any assistance from the government because they're not U.S. corporations. I'd give them a C plus.
Okay. What about hotels and resorts?
Close to an A.
Okay. And finally, what about tour operators?
F.
Okay. A failing grade. Well, they'll have to take the course over again. But now, what would you tell travel advisors involved with this? Because a lot of what travel advisors have been doing, and they're still doing, because obviously the cruise lines keep pushing the restart date farther and farther down because the CDC no sail order. So there are more cancellations all the time for cruises in the future. What would you tell travel advisors who are sort of in the thick of this, who are trying to help their clients? They're trying to get them either the refund or the future credit, or advising them on this. What would you tell them they should be doing at this time?
I think you just have to be candid with them and say, this is what we would recommend. We'll try to assist you, but there's no guarantees. These are obviously unique times that nobody's ever faced that I'm aware of in the travel industry or in any other industry. And we'll do the best we can for you. But I think you just got to be candid with them, and it depends on their personal circumstances.
Well, then,
keep in mind,
of course, there's the other issue is with future cruise credits. The at least on the cruise line side that I know, and maybe tour operator side, they've made it somewhat attractive for travel advisors to kind of recommend the future credit because they will retain the commission and might even be getting the commission now in some cases. So they sort of have, I mean, yes, their duty is to the client, but in some cases, and maybe they genuinely feel that the offer is a good one, as opposed to, you said there might be a better offer on the table. And maybe they feel also if there is a better offer, they can negotiate with the cruise line or tour operator. So what would you, I mean, there is sort of a self-interest there in terms of, because they will retain that commission and they're hurting too.
Absolutely. Well, that's all personal. And that comes down to the question, and lawyers, I know lawyers who act like this. I do a case for you. I'm not looking to the future. Whatever I make on this case is it. And I'll worry about the future there. The people that do what I do, and it's a limited number of us who have been doing this, you're looking to make a client happy because everybody in this industry talks to each other. So I don't want it to get out that Jeff Miller ripped me off, or Jeff Miller wasn't a good attorney, or Jeff Miller didn't treat me right. So I'd rather work with you and give you advice that may impact me financially a little bit, but help me into the future. I think what travel advisors have to look at, if you're in this for the long game, you can't act like that. You can't think like it. You can put on the option, here's your two options, but it shouldn't involve your back thought that, hey, I get my commission now, or I'm going to make a commission on the extra 25%. I just don't think that's a long game to stay in this business. And travel advisors are clearly, no question, hurting as everybody else is.
Yeah, well, definitely. And a lot of them who sell cruises are hurting doubly because there are no products to sell except for 2021. And then there was recently, I mean, are there legal implications for cruise lines and travel advisors that, let's say, sell future travel, let's say on cruises for, let's say, 2021, even though the CDC no sale order is still in effect? And I even read a quote from a CDC official who said it was horrible, and it was, that he couldn't believe that they were selling cruises. I just wrote about this today, which I actually think the CDC official is wrong, because they can always push those cruises farther down, but a lot of people still want to cruise.
I don't think there's any problem. I sell a cruise for March of 2021, and I explained to the person, as of now, there's a no sale order through September 30th. If the government extends that sale order past the day you sail, you don't sail. I think they're aware of that. But you get into other complications because I think you're aware, you have airline tickets, you may have advanced hotels before or after the cruise, and those are different issues. But there's no problem selling a future cruise. I mean, Roberta and I have a cruise booked next July that we booked when we were on a cruise last December when we were on the ship, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, so
long way off.
Yeah, and if it happens, you'll have to push it further down. another time if you can do that, although obviously circumstances change, family events happen, and sometimes you can't do it. I guess now there's anything else that you want to say about these issues in terms of cancellations, rebookings, future credits, and refunds?
Well, yes, one of the problems you run into is the example I just gave. You may be doing a cruise and you've added on, or your advisor has added on for you a 4 or 5 day land package before or after. Have nothing to do with the cruise itself, but separate or hotel packages. Well, there's really no obligation for those folks to give you back your money.
Right.
They're there, and assuming now it's no fly order and you can get into the EU. I mean, I'm assuming there's no restrictions. Do they give you your money back? I dealt with a group of lawyers, actually. They were referred to me by one of my relatives, again, on a pro bono basis. And they had booked a trip through Cambodia and Vietnam. And they didn't want to go. The airline was operating, and the hotels that they were staying in were operating, and they didn't want to give them their money back. They said, well, can you show us that the airline you're operating is not coming? No. And they finally, their travel advisor did a wonderful job for them and got them a credit for the entire trip that has to be used within the next 15 months. Mm-hmm. And with the same suppliers. But otherwise, they had no leg to stand on. They're out.
Right. No, that's absolutely the case.
Now, keep in mind, if you have travel insurance and if you're older, like my age, I'm sure you can find a doctor who can find something wrong with you to prevent you from traveling. But I mean, travel insurance will protect you if it's a medical reason.
Well, we're going to talk about travel insurance in the next segment we do with you. Jeff, I want to thank you for getting up and talking with us this morning. It's great to see you. We haven't been together for a little while. We keep talking about it, and now in COVID world, we haven't been able to do that. But we always enjoy your columns, and now to see you live, as I often do when I go to conferences and go into your sessions where you're talking just like this, where people throw out legal questions and you go tell them what you think, and then qualify it by saying, you can't use that as my legal advice, but that's correct. Yeah. So it's interesting to see. It's great to see you. And the next segment we do with you, we are going to talk about travel insurance, and we're going to talk about online travel agencies versus traditional travel advisor bookings and the implications, as well as sort of overall, if you think the COVID pandemic has changed travel law, or the travel law actually will exist and actually is helping in these cases. But again, thank you so much, and we will see you in the next segment.
My pleasure. Thank you so much. Stay healthy, James.
I'm James Shillinglaw, and this is Insider Travel Report.